Absolutely. My name is Juan Gomez, and I currently serve as an assistant director for a K through 5 elementary school.
Perfect, perfect. And how did you get in the field of education?
Ooh, how do I
Start from the
unload that?
beginning.
Start
Start
from
from
the
the
beginning.
beginning.
So, all right. I mean, we got time, right?
Yeah, we do.
How did I get into the field of education? I think while many people might say why their positive experiences will push them into education, I had the complete opposite. My negative experiences through my K through 12 education was
Yeah.
what led me to the field because I wanted to be a part of the solution, right? So what do I mean by that? I am a byproduct of the LAUSD.
Hmm.
I have had some positive experiences, but a lot of it, knowing what I know now, I feel like there could have been a lot more that could have been done to
Yeah.
really facilitate my learning and my growth, right, as a student. Um, let's go. Let's start. I think it started, first generation immigrant parents from
Hmm.
Mexico. I'm gonna go way back, just to
Yeah. No,
provide all the
it's good.
context.
Let's
Just to
go.
provide all the context. Parents are from Mexico. I am a sibling. I'm a brother to two older sisters, so I'm the youngest of my family. Both parents are immigrants from Mexico, Zacatecas to be specific.
Hmm.
So we had to figure out how to navigate everything, right?
Yeah.
When it came to this country. Although I was born here and I am a first generation um, uh, student, I um, I saw the difficulties that my older siblings had, and I learned from that
Hmm.
because they had to navigate, the educational space. They had to navigate um, getting supporting my parents, being immigrants, and then from there, I they got into some trouble, in high school. Love them dearly. I'm sure they watch this, but I love them dearly. They got into some trouble because the school system was not doing them justice, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming it on the school system, but that's just a result of what they weren't getting. And through that, soccer was my golden ticket. I played soccer at an elite level for many years. At some point, I even played in Mexico professionally. But I think that was the pivotal moment for me, where I was 16, got scouted. I won't say the name of the team, but it's a very popular team in Mexico. I'm 16. I was scouted, and I didn't even have a high school education. Right, and I
Yeah.
was like, "This is my golden ticket." And I had an epiphany because I had to make a decision. Right, I could actually do this, or I can. I I almost scared myself out of it because I
Yeah.
told myself I want to go back to the states. I'm going to make myself a promise. I'm going to go back to the states, finish my high school diploma, because what happens if I get injured, right? A professional career can only last X amount of years, but my
Hmm.
education is forever. So I decided to come back to the states, finish my education, high school. Again, it was a blur because I never really connected
Yeah.
between my home life and my school life. My parents, not that they didn't care, but they just didn't know how to support me in my schoolwork, like many Latino families that we
Hmm.
serve.
Hmm.
And then through that, my sisters, they went off, they became adults. School wasn't for them. And at the age of 18, all my friends are applying for colleges. I'm just kind
Wow.
of there doing soccer, right? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
um, all right. Not really sure what college is. I don't know what UCLA stands for or USC stands for. UCLA, USC, right? Because you see
Yeah.
it everywhere, but like, I
Yeah.
don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And then from there, I had a girlfriend at the time whose father I'm very grateful for. Shout out to Mr. Ryan if you're watching this. So at the time, I had a girlfriend whose father was an elementary teacher, male, Latino.
Yeah.
And because I was around, at the around his household, he always guided me and he provided a different perspective of what a Latino male should look like. I love my father. He's a great role model, hardworking. That's where I got my work ethic from. But this gentleman provided an alternative way of living
Hmm.
that I wasn't aware of or was even thought was
Hmm.
possible. And it was right there where I was like, that's what I want to do. That's
Yeah.
what I want to be. The way he carried himself, the way he spoke, the way he articulated himself. I remember saying, I want to speak like him one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, again, going back to high school, everyone's applying. I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. I go to a workshop. They told me click this button, submit now to apply. So I did, um, and from there, that's where my life changed. I got into an EOP program at my university, which stands for Educational Opportunity Program, which is for low income first generation students that
Mm-hmm.
are learning how to navigate the higher ed space.
Yeah.
And then from there, so there's trust me, there's you'll understand
Go
why.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Long story. From there, so I'm there. I'm in college. Don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't even get to the point where I wasn't taking the general ed
Yeah.
courses because I was like at the lowest of the low. Any remedial course you can think of, I had to take it because
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't prepared. I didn't. Again, I was navigating a whole new space that, as a first generation college student, right? Couldn't ask my parents, couldn't ask my sisters, and at that moment, it was around 2009 when the whole economy crash was happening. Father lost his job, father lost his business, decided to move out of state. My sisters decided to follow. And at that point, I was already in school and deuces. So I had to figure it out, right? I had to
Yeah.
strap my boots on and figure it out. And then from there, through this program, Education Opportunity Program for first generation college students, um, majority of color, I saw myself. And I was like, there's other people with similar experiences like mine. And I didn't feel alone. And at that point, I found a community, right?
Yeah.
People like me. So I was like, I love this. So I became a part of the program. I started mentoring first generation college students as a peer
Awesome.
advisor. And as I'm hearing their stories, I'm like, because they come in, they get advisement. These are the classes you're going to take. This is how college works. You're going to take this course. You're going to meet this professor, right? So I'm helping them navigate the space that I didn't know how to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then through that, I'm like, wow, like what? There's a big gap between by the time you graduate high school and you get to college, assuming that you make it to college,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you made it here by a thread, right? Just like me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, where does this start? Yeah, you can catch a few of them in high school, right? Yeah, you can catch a few of them in middle school. But I'm like, starts in elementary. Starts when they're young because that's the foundation,
Yeah.
right? That's where it really starts. And then all these things are happening simultaneously. So I have Mr. Vain, who's giving me a different outlook on life and what could be possible for me as an educated Latino man, as
Mm-hmm.
he was. I have these experiences happening in college for me, navigating a totally new space, um, and then just figuring out how to be an adult, right, on my own.
Yeah.
So through that, I'm like, okay, I'm really doing this. I'm 3 years into college, and then I'm like, I'm finally declaring my major. I'm going to be a teacher, all right? And not just any teacher,
Yeah.
elementary teacher.
It's good.
And from there, that's where it all started for me. The rest is
Yeah.
history. That it
Yeah.
made my decision. This is what I want to do.
Isn't it crazy? Like that, growing up, you don't really see these male role models, right? These male figures, these male role models. I didn't see them growing up. It was very rare, that I saw somebody that was a professional, right? Somebody that had a professional job, like he was, I don't know, a, a doctor. No, there's no such thing as doctors where I grew up. A nurse, not even a nurse, nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There's nothing. Like I'm thinking about all the when I was growing up, I didn't. Nobody had a good job.
yeah,
Nobody had a job, and I could look at and that was a man, and you know it was very hard. It was very hard to find those male role models, right? And I could think of two. I could think of two when I was growing up, and I talk about this, but one specifically was the park director.
mm,
The park director, I'd go to park, play basketball, hang out at the park, and he had a job. He was a park director. He was a man, and he'd come out, he'd hang out with us, he'd talk to us, he'd try to give us advice, like you got to do these things. I was like, man, I want to be a park director. I didn't know that was a job. wait,
Hmm.
being a park director is a real job. Like you direct everything and you run the after school programs,
Hmm.
you run the basketball, the football, the soccer programs are here. You run. I would like, I could do that, and just giving you that little taste of like, man, there's something else out there.
Right.
There's something else out there that I can do. That's so important, and growing up poor, growing up, my parents didn't graduate from high school, growing up with like limited resources, right? You don't see these things. You don't
Right.
see these things at all. And so, it's so important that people like me, like you, see strong male figures that are
Right.
professionals, that carry themselves a certain way, that speak a
Correct.
certain way, that have degrees, that you're like, man, that guy's successful.
Yeah.
He looks just like me.
Right.
Maybe I could be successful, that kind of stuff.
And one thing I do want to clear up is not that our parents didn't want to, it's just that they're figuring out how to navigate a space of immigrants, right? In a
You-
country not knowing the language,
yeah.
third grade education from Mexico. My dad didn't even graduate high school, so they're still navigating their own stuff, right?
My story is a little different. My story was my parents were born here. Both my parents were born here, but they got caught up in things. They got caught up in things. My family comes from a line of alcohol and drug abuse.
Mm.
Of my father had a mental illness. Um, so my story was that where like they got caught up in just the
Yeah.
wrong things. And I look at my uncle or my uncles and my aunts even, and they're abusing alcohol and they're addicted to drugs or
Mhm.
whatever. Some of them have passed away because of liver cirrhosis or whatever, drug abuse. And so that was that's what I had to deal with. And so when you see that all your family members are like addicted to something, and you see that all your family members are pretty poor, and like it's like, man, I maybe this is the life, this is what is expected of me as well. It's so that was different for me.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like you become a byproduct of you're a byproduct of your community and your surroundings, right? And
Yep.
no one's fault, right?
Mhm.
We oftentimes say the system is broken, but is it really? When it keeps
Mhm.
producing the same results, right? Over
Right.
and
It's seems like it's doing what it's supposed to do, huh?
exactly, yeah. I think that leads kind of into part two in my journey as an elementary educator. So I make a decision, right? I'm gonna do this, and I'm locked in. I'm focused, going through my program. I'm looking around my program, my other uh, cohorts. And I'm like, I'm literally the only guy here, right? I'm literally the only guy.
That's right.
And I would take a few more courses, and I'm like, there's another guy there. But wait, I'm still the only brown guy here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I want you to think about all the urban schools in urban areas, right? Predominantly Latino.
Hmm.
Um, Yet the staff predominantly Caucasian or female.
Hmm.
So these kids are not seeing themselves, right? So then I start my journey as a teacher. My first day, right? Okay, I'm ready. I did this. I got the credentials. I got the degree. I did what I have to do. And then I look around and I'm like, I'm still the only guy here, and I'm still the only Latino man, right?
Hmm.
And I tend to no one's fault. It's just kind of how organically happened. I become almost like the spokesperson, right, for the
For
Latino
all
community,
men, for all brown men.
for all brown men. And in addition to that, like kids just naturally, organically gravitated towards me. They
Hmm.
responded to me. Mr.
Hmm.
Gomez, I'm going to send this student to you. He doesn't listen. I don't know. And I don't know what you do, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. At the
Yeah.
time, I couldn't write down what I was doing. I was just being organic. I was just building rapport with these students
Yeah.
because I understood where they were coming from. I understood their traumas. I understood their stories.
Hmm.
And I think going back now, if I was able to respond to those people that would tell me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, I would say I can tell you now what I was doing. I was building rapport. I was
Hmm.
understanding. I
Yeah.
was I was listening,
Hmm.
right? I was making them feel important. even though there's a million things happening, right? As a classroom teacher, I gave them the space to know that this is a safe space, right?
Yep.
Because oftentimes as they go home, right? Siéntate, cállate,
Mm-hmm.
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to school. It's like, listen, be quiet, listen to what
Same
I
thing. Yeah.
exactly. So then it's like these kids need an outlet, and sometimes all we need to do is give them a few minutes of our time. That's all
Yeah.
they're asking for, and then it's going to pay dividends moving forward
Yeah.
as you proceed through through the rest of the year, right? And then from there, so I'm in the classroom for a couple years, right? I'm like, man, I love what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. Then I'm like, I get tapped on the shoulder. Hey, I'm sure this happened to you. I'm sure you can relate to this. You'd be a really good administrator, right? And remember, I never even thought that I would even
Yeah.
go to college and get a degree. And I'm like, because that idea was never in my head to become an
Yeah.
administrator. But then through my experiences, through, people that also poured into me, I got to give them credit too. There's a lot of people. I was very fortunate for people that poured into me and my growth as a learner and as an educator and as a practitioner in the field. And then I'm like, I think I can do that. Now I want to support not just on a micro level, but on a macro level, right?
Yeah.
As administrators, we get to help support making some of those big decisions that impact the rest of the school and how the schools run, the daily operations of the school, but also the culture of the school. We have a big responsibility in that nature.
Yeah.
And I went through my educational journey again, as an administrator, loving what I'm doing. And then as I continue through my journey as an administrator and school leader, I get the crazy idea of you should go pursue your doctorate, right? So here I am, as a doctoral student now. Crazy enough, I didn't think I'd get this far, but
Yeah.
but again, it wasn't like I woke up and I say I want to be an administrator. No, it's just kind of these things have been happening organically because I'm seeing the gaps in the school system and I want to be a part
That's
of the
right.
solution. I
That's
want to be
right.
a part of the solution.
Yeah. This is same with me. Like I never wanted to be administrator. I never that wasn't one of my childhood dreams. Like, oh, guess what? I want to be a principal. No, that was never it was like I want to help kids. I want to help kids. That's it. I just want to help kids. Became a teacher, and I was good at it. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm probably like 12 years in teaching already. Like 12 years in, I'm working at a middle school. Um John Lathy Middle School. Shout out to John Lathy Middle School. And I'm working there, and it so happens that there's just a bunch of young, fresh teachers there who are ambitious. And it turned out I would hang out with these young, fresh, ambitious teachers. And one of them got their admin credentials. And they're like, you guys should get your admin credential. I got it. You should get it. And we're like, well, if she got it, then I guess we could get it. And
Yeah,
then the group all got their admin credential. We're like, oh, let's go. We'll help each other out. Let's all get our admin credential. And I sat on my admin credential for a long time.
yeah,
I got it and I sat on it and I continued to teach. I was like, I don't know if I'll ever use this. I don't know if I'll ever use this. And it got to a point where middle school and I was teaching at a rough middle school. If you ever look up John Lathy, it's a rough middle school. And I'm teaching there. I'm doing a good job. And I'm like, man, this is getting a little boring. This is boring for this is too easy. This
yeah,
is too easy now. Like, you see other people I'm not struggling at all. This is easy for me. And I'm like, what, let me go back to elementary school. Maybe I need to go back I went back to elementary school, teaching fifth grade, taught it for like 3 years in fifth grade. And it was like I could close my eyes and teach.
yeah,
Like I could just do this with no effort at all. I didn't need any lesson plans. I knew here's the standards, here's what I gotta teach, it was so easy. And I'm like, man, and I ran my class so smoothly. I had great classroom management. It was just ran like clockwork. And then I was like, this is too easy for me. I need to activate my credential. I need to do something. I need to if let me have an influence on a
hmm
broader thing. And that idea of let me influence more got me to activate my credential. I became a dean of students at a middle school, high school. Now I'm dealing with all these kids. And then from that point forward, I became an assistant principal over special education. but I never was like, I want to be a principal.
I
It
mean, who
was never,
does?
it was never that,
Yeah.
and I don't, if you're, sometimes I feel like teachers believe that people just, admin just think I'm here to, I want to be an admin.
Yeah.
No, it was just it was a process. And the process was, I want to help as many kids as
Mhm.
possible.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say like, I'm a young like I'm new to admin. So
Hmm.
all this is new to me. Like all this, I taught for 18 years and it
Hmm.
became like a cinch. This is my fourth year as an admin, but I'm gonna say really, really, this year that I've had right now has been the most difficult year. I'm in charge of so many other programs. This school is much more bigger than any school I've worked at as an admin,
Hmm.
and it's like all new learning for me. It's all new learning for me. It's all fresh, all new. Like, oh, how do I do that? How do I do that? Oh, how do I work with a student? How do I work with a population of students with autism?
Hmm.
Aut Alternative curriculum.
Hmm.
How do I manage that? Like I don't have too much experience with all that. I'm not an expert in any of that.
But I
All I
think,
know is that I love kids and I care for them and I want them to succeed, and that's the bottom line.
right.
And because of that passion, I'm like, I'll figure it out.
I
I'll
agree.
figure it out.
I totally resonate with that because when you're able to identify your own areas of improvement, right? We all know what we're all good at, right?
Yeah.
That's easy. We can all identify, oh, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. But when you're able to recognize the things that you need to improve on, right?
Yeah.
And being willing to not ignore it, but face it. And because at the end of the day, we want to help kids, right? So
Yeah.
by all means necessary, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to learn to do right by you,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to learn it because I want to do right by you. I made a commitment when I decided to join this field, and that commitment was to you, and everyone else is going to come after you, and everyone else is going to come after me, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm only gonna take, uh, my current role from point A to point B, but at some point, someone's gonna have to pick it up after me,
Yeah.
right? But when you make that commitment, it's like when we made that commitment, we know that we're gonna figure this out,
Yeah.
and one building block at a time. And I think it's
Yeah.
that mindset that kind of uh, provides hope too for the kids and for the teachers because they're looking up to us too. Like,
Hmm.
you have all the answers. You need to have all the answers.
And we don't.
Right.
And we don't have all the answers. We do our very best, and we'll go and try to find the answers for them. We'll go like, I don't have that answer. Let me go and see. Let me go ask somebody. Let me contact whomever I need to contact to make sure that
Right.
you're okay. But yeah, it all comes down for me. Like I just wanted to help kids. That was the, and kids, like when, I've taught at so many different schools. I taught at a Catholic school. I taught at multiple elementary schools. I taught at middle schools. I've been at a high school. So I've taught at so many different schools, right? There's only one school where I felt I wasn't needed. I worked in, it was an elementary school in West Hollywood. I got displaced as a LAUSD teacher. I got displaced and I got picked up at school in West Hollywood. And I got there and I was teaching there and I was like, man, these kids don't really need me.
Mhm.
They don't need me. They're gonna be just fine.
Mhm.
These kids in here in my class, I was teaching third grade. These third grade students are gonna be just fine. They don't need me at all, you know. And that was a point where I was like, man, I need to find a different school because I'm not needed here.
Right.
Somebody else could take this job. Somebody else could teach these kids because I want to help the kids that look like me, that went through the same struggles as me, that maybe had drug or alcohol abuse in their family, maybe they had mental illness in their family, maybe that they grew up on welfare, they grew up on public assistance, they grew up on food stamps. Maybe that those are the kids. Maybe they've never seen a professional. Maybe they've never seen a man carry himself a certain way and carry some certain um, presence. Maybe they've never seen that before. I need to show those kids that. And so
Right.
now that's the only place I've been at where I was like, man, I don't belong here. Like they're gonna be fine. These kids are gonna be fine. But
Right.
I need to go back to over there where they
Where you are
actually
needed.
need me. They
Right.
need me, you know?
Right. And I think that it almost becomes like a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure there's this heavy weight that both you and I carry because we would be doing a disservice, to our communities that we serve, by not giving back, by not being in these roles that we're in, by not serving.
That's
We
right.
didn't get this far to let it end after us,
Yeah.
right? And I remind myself of that as I go through these challenges, navigating a doctoral space, navigating a leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
navigating a career as a school educator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't ask my mom like, "Hey, how do you?" Right? I don't say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my parents, thankfully, they're doing well now, but for many years they were both custodians.
Yeah.
They were both custodians, so and to not at all their fault, but that they didn't know how to help me navigate this space. So, like I said, I feel like it's a responsibility of mine to make sure that the kids that I serve, the communities that I serve, um, that I can be help bridge that gap, right?
Yeah.
The home life and the school life,
Yeah. I always feel like it's for me. I feel like it's a battle. It's always been a battle for me. Like I wake up and there's people that I need to save. There, I feel like there's people that need help. There's people that need help, and I need to pick up my sword and get out there and do my very best to try to help as many people as I possibly can, and fight for the people that I serve. Fight
right?
for them hard. Like I'm here for you. I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure that you're a success.
Right.
And I'm gonna fight for you hard. I'm gonna give you my all for the hours that I'm at work, but then when I leave, and then I'm by myself. I'm good.
Yeah,
When I leave work, I leave work at work. But when
we
I'm
have
at work,
we have
yeah,
to.
you have to. You have to.
Have to, because there's always something to do, right? There's always something that needs to get done. But if we don't do that, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to the students and to the teachers that we serve, right?
Yeah,
Because then
yeah.
we're not at 100%, right?
That's
I
right.
have a ratio, and I share this with teachers sometimes, that when they ask me how you're doing, right? Like, how's your day going, all right? And I say, I think today, and I'll give my response, right? Depending on how I am feeling, I'm pretty honest, and with the kids too, right? Like, how you doing today, Mr. Gomez? So one of the I want to touch base on that in a little bit, but so I have this rule. It's a ratio. It's the ratio of thirds, right? I I want to love my job third, and the ratio might be off a little bit, but I want to love my job 33% of the time. I'm gonna have days where I was just like, just the regular mundane things,
Yeah.
about another 30%, and then the other 30. There's gonna be parts when I hate my job, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this to myself? If those ratios are ever off, right, where I'm really hating my job, or that's when I know, like, okay, maybe I've done my part and I need to, you know, try something else, because uh, I also need to make sure I take care of me and my
Yeah.
needs and my family, and make sure that I'm here for them too, because this field can be very draining,
Mm-hmm.
because
Well, what
everyone.
if you really love your job? What if it's like 66%? What does that mean?
I think that means that I need a new challenge,
Yeah.
right? Because then that means, like, okay, I'm really good at what I'm doing, right? I'm really good at what I'm doing. I love coming to work every day. What's next, right?
Yeah.
I figured this out. What's next? Actually, no one's ever asked me that. That's a good question, but I
Yeah.
think that would be my response. I think at that point that means that I need to challenge myself, right, to know how I can make an even bigger impact on a bigger level.
That's how I feel. Every job that I was at, I I started off as a Catholic school teacher. I did it for 5 years, and I was like, "This is too easy.
Hmm.
Let me try my luck with public education."
Hmm.
I got into LAUSD. I got bumped around because I was a new teacher, so my seniority was so I got bumped around. Then I was let go. I was let go because they were doing cuts. They were doing budget cuts. Went back, top middle school, like I said, too easy. Went back to element, too easy. And all these things would just became too easy. And every time it became too easy, I was like, it's time to go. I don't think I've ever stayed at a place longer than 5 years.
Same.
I've never stayed at a place longer than 5 years, 3 to 5 years. Then it's time to go,
Correct.
And so like my last admin position, I was at a place where it was I was there for 3 years.
Hmm.
And the universe bumped me out. The universe was like, we're taking you out here.
Yeah.
We're gonna put you at this one other place, and I'm
Yeah.
at this other place, and this is all new learn. And I'll probably be there for 3 to 5 years.
But it
I'll
keeps it
probably be
fun,
there.
though. It keeps
It
it fun.
does.
It keeps
It
it fun.
does.
It's
And I
new.
like your ratios because the ratios are correct. The 33, 33. Yeah, that's correct. Um,
Be-
That's
Very
yeah,
similar to you. I get bored easily, right? Like once I feel like I've mastered something, I was like you in the way that I always changed, but I didn't necessarily change sites. I would change grade levels,
yeah.
right? Okay, I taught fifth grade. Okay, I think I got this. I want to try something else. Then I would do second grade. I did second grade, and then I moved to a different school within the same organization.
Hmm.
Um, Taught second grade. I taught fourth. I taught sixth grade. Um, but I feel like throughout that entire time, it kept things fun,
Yeah,
kept things intriguing. There were times where I was challenged. And I'm like, I don't know how to figure this out.
yeah,
I don't know what to do, right? But it kept things interesting for me because I know that at the other end of that challenge there was growth, right? I
yeah,
think back now and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I went through that because I learned. I learned.
yeah.
There's no growth outside of how's that saying go? There's no
You got to
growth,
struggle. You need to struggle for growth. There's no
right?
growth without struggle. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
A- And so, what do you think about in 2025 education and 2025? What's going on with education now?
in what way? Just
So let's just take a look at how let's just take a look at fear.
mhm,
Let's just take a look at fear because fear is in the media,
mhm,
right? Fear is in the media right now. So let's just take a look at that. You're let's just say you're a fifth grader and you're on social media and you're first generation and your parents don't
mhm,
they came from a different country and you're like, man, they might get deported.
mhm.
Um, how could I focus here in class when I'm worried about my family? You know, how do I do that? That's something that's a new thing to think about. What do you think about? Let's just start there.
Well, I think we need to provide reassurance to our kids, right?
Yeah.
That could be done in a variety of ways, right? It could be one on one. It could be in a group setting, depending on what needs that you're seeing at your own school sites. Because I know that it's different in many
Hmm.
school sites and everyone's approach. But I think that we need to provide reassurance to our kiddos that by no means this is a safe space for you, right? And letting
Hmm.
them know that your school has your back. Like
Yeah.
we want to provide that reassurance. Obviously, there's so many variables to really provide that guarantee. Like nothing's gonna happen, but we will need to make sure that we make them feel safe.
Yeah.
That we reassure them that you're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right. And if a challenge does come across our way, we're gonna figure this out. And we're gonna figure this out for you and your family.
Yeah.
Right? And it also hits home. It hits home for me, right? Because um, for me specifically, I'm speaking on for myself. Um, I was that kid. I could
Hmm.
have been that kid. Like, man, like, what if they do? If they do take my parents,
Hmm.
what am I going to do? How's this going to work? Right. So, what would I have wanted? Right at a time like this, if I was a student, I would have just wanted reassurance from someone that can tell me, like, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine, and I want to reassure you that I'm here to um, to protect you, right?
Yeah.
To provide that reassurance for you, and that could be through a conversation. That may mean that you have to be the front line if it did come down to that, but
Yeah.
we just need to provide that reassurance,
That's good.
not
That's
just
a
for
good.
the kids, but for the families.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Like it's a tough situation. All the things are going on right now. If you're on social media and you see all the things that are going on right now, it's a scary time.
Yeah, I
Scary
think
time for
yeah,
kids,
I think that,
families.
I think that'll be very telling of us as educators because it's gonna question our own morals, right?
Yeah,
And our own morals, and I think our own moral compass is gonna guide the decision that we make in those moments,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's gonna impact the trajectory of that student's life for many
yeah.
years to come after that. So if it ever did come down to it, that's gonna be really telling of the morals that you have as an educator.
Hmm. How about like behavior wise? Behavior wise in 2020, I know growing up, I don't remember behavior being this ridiculous growing up. I don't remember being this ridiculous growing up. And then when I was a classroom teacher, I don't remember it being that bad. I remember it being bad, but not like that bad.
Yeah.
and then it just progressively gets worse and worse. Like we're in 2025, there's a lot of behavior problems, right? Like it's more than I've ever seen. Why do you think it's that way?
I think it's a variety of reasons. I think there's many variables for me to just tell you, oh, it's because of this,
Hmm.
right? Each student comes with their own traumas, with their own experiences, with their own lived experiences
Yeah.
that can, get them to get to that point. Um, but it is very it's interesting to see. And again, and I would consider myself still a baby in the field of education in comparison to someone who's been doing this for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't have that point of view because someone who's been doing this for 30 years, they're like, no, you guys weren't this bad. Right?
Hmm.
Like when I was a student. um, but even within the time frame that I have been in the field, I've seen it myself, right, in that short span. I think it's a variety of things. I think it's this idea that, again, you talk about lived experiences, their own traumas, but also I think, it's also educating our families and our community members and our parents, right? Sometimes it's, this has happened several times. Like, I don't know what to do with him anymore. Or I don't know what to do with her anymore, right?
Yeah.
So we have to guide them, right? On, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this intervention? And I think it takes a village, right? It's not just, it shouldn't always just be put on the teachers. It shouldn't always be put on the admin. It shouldn't always be put on the parents. It's a collective effort,
Mhm.
and we all have to be committed,
Yeah.
right? Because if one of those things is missing, then it's going to have an impact on student behavior. Um, but I do feel that kids just need to know that you care, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't have it figured out, I'm going to get you through the day
Yeah.
because clearly you're trying to communicate a need to me through your behavior. You just don't know how to articulate it, and I'm going to help you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You know what the best pain? You the best pain. You know what the best part about student behavior is for me
Hmm.
is when it works.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you put in all these interventions, you have a plan in place, and then you put time in between all of that, and then you
Yeah.
see the growth, and then you see like, man, this worked. This actually worked. It reassures you that you're doing the right work by the student, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the disconnect. A lot of times we want kids to be fixed. Can't fix kids, right?
Yeah.
It's
Can't
a
fix
process.
anybody.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
process, and it takes time and consistency, which teachers don't have. We don't have that as educators. We don't have that. We don't have time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't have time.
We
So,
don't.
but we getting positive behavior from a student requires time, consistency,
Yeah.
and it's not always going to be pretty, and it's not always going to be perfect, but we
No.
just have to be consistent and really be on top of it. But I know that that's difficult when you have 20 kids that need your attention, right? In the
Yeah.
scope of a school setting, right? Now, if your entire student roster, if they're all having behavior problems, then I think as a school there's a problem, right? But
Yeah.
I'm referring to like those neediest of the needy. Those, I'm talking about
Mm.
our tier three kiddos that require like all hands on deck approach. I'm not talking about oh, the kid didn't listen to me, the kid didn't. I'm not talking about those kids because those kids,
Yeah.
if you have a system in place as a school, right? Um, a lot of preventative measures. A big chunk of, I would say, about 90% of your students should be able to follow the rules of the school, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into your tier two kiddos, right? Those are the kiddos that may need a little bit more support, a little bit more assistance. It's a lot of prevention, but also response. And then if that doesn't work, that should be about a smaller percentage, maybe like 5%. And then a very small percent, maybe between 1 to 3% of your students that are tier three. Those are
Yeah.
the neediest of the needy, right? And those ratios should not be off because then if you're
Yeah.
always responding, then you have a problem,
Yeah.
right? And that could be draining too as an administrator and a teacher
Absolutely.
and a parent.
I feel like growing up, I think that respect was just given.
Oh, absolutely.
Growing up, respect was just given. That's the teacher. You're quiet. You listen. That's the teacher. You respect. You're at church. You respect the priest. Whatever. You respect the pastor. You're at certain. You respect your elders just because
Hmm.
that's just the way it was. Your
Hmm.
parents taught you certain thing. You respect, and that's it. And now respect has to be earned. you have to work for the respect. You can't. It's just not just because you're the teacher now doesn't mean that the kids are just going to respect you just because you have the title. Just because you're the assistant principal or the principal or the whomever, the director or the superintendent, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It has to be earned. It has to be earned now. And so I think that is an issue. And I don't know if many people know how to earn respect. They feel like it should just come to them just because of their title.
Hmm.
I'm the teacher. You got to listen. No, that's not how it is right now. And back when I was growing up, that's how it was, but not in 2025. You would have to earn that. You would have to build rapport. You'd have to build a relationship. You have to demonstrate that you care about me here. You would have to demonstrate that you listen, you forgive, you do these things to build respect. And I'm going to give you the respect, classroom management becomes easy,
Right.
but you have to earn it.
Yeah. And if there's anything to be said here, I think my overall message on behavior, it has to be a collective commitment by all parties involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Parents, community members, administrators, teachers, supporting staff, because it cannot just all be put on one person.
And it can't be divided. You
Exactly.
can't you can't be you can't have this division. And I swear there's so much division. There's so much division. Admin versus teachers versus whomever. There's division all around. And if we're divided like that, we could never be successful.
Right. Because it's very easy for it to, well, that's your job. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's yours, and then it becomes a tug of war, right? When it's like, no, we're doing this together, right? Um, and through that, obviously, you'll see results if there is a collective commitment from all stakeholders. But the parents aren't involved. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna collectively commit as a school what's within our control.
Yeah.
But there's always something, right? But reminding ourselves that we are collectively committing to supporting all students.
Yeah. I have a question. How important is having positive social media channels out there? Like, how important is like any positive social media channel? Because sometimes I question whether or not I should continue.
Hmm.
Sometimes I question: do I continue to put out messages? Do I continue to put myself out there like that? Do I continue to give my opinion about certain things?
Yeah,
How important is that?
that's a great question because you know what? For someone like me who's very private, I like to keep my life very private. Um,
Yeah,
I like to keep my personal life private. I like to keep my work life. I like to keep those things separated for my own reasons. But to answer your question, it's people like you who are brave enough to put the content out there and
mhm,
to put yourself on the and be vulnerable, right? Uh, to be vulnerable in this space for people like me to see and be like, man, there are other good people out there that are doing God's work.
yeah,
I think it's important, and it's also reassuring as, hey, I do that, or it also becomes like like a a space where you can understand like I'm not doing this by myself. There's other
mhm,
people out there experiencing this, right?
yeah,
So I think that it's important because that is just social media now is the tool that everyone that a lot of people use as
to
to get
communicate.
their information, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
I like to say that Facebook is like is Facebook is to Instagram to us is what us being like my generation is what
Yeah,
Facebook was to my parents, as to TikTok is to like the new generation.
yeah,
This is where we get our information, right? This
yeah,
is where we tend to like look for inspiration, right?
yeah,
So I think you putting yourself out there uh, as a school leader, as a male Latino in the field,
yeah,
I was able to resonate with that. So hit that follow button, and I don't
yeah,
follow a lot of people. So
yeah,
I think it's important, not just the work that you're doing as a school leader, but also being able to put yourself out there like that, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy. And you know, I always got to be careful. And I don't want to mention, you know, I just give my ideas. I give broad ideas about how I feel about certain things,
Hmm.
about how, and I usually talk about how to deal with difficult behavior. I usually talk about how to deal with difficult behavior, but you know, there's times where I'm thinking like, you know, you know, I gotta be careful, and like, you know, there's always that's in the back of my mind, and I'm pretty careful. I'm pretty like, hey,
Do
you
you
know,
ever get pushback,
all the time.
like in terms of do you ever get pushback in terms of like oh, here goes Mr. Vergara talking about building school rapport, right?
Well, here's how
Yeah,
I feel,
yeah.
right? Like if you worked with me, like if you were at the school that I wore, let's just pretend like I'm at a school and you know you worked with me, and I feel like you get judged. I feel like you get judged differently. Like, oh, here's the guy with all the answers. You should be able to solve this problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, man. You know, I put out these ideas, but I can't. I don't have all the answers. That's not true. I don't have all the answers. I have an idea. I have an idea how to deal with this difficult behavior, and I'm willing to say this is how you deal with a difficult student, right? This is how you deal with this difficult behavior. But I don't have all the answers, and I feel like sometimes people look at me as and they're like, "Oh, that's that guy. He should have the answers. You know, that's the guy." I'm like, no, I'm just like anybody here at the school.
Yeah.
I'm just like anybody at the school who is dedicated to the kids. The only difference is that I just put ideas out on social media. That's
Hmm.
it. You
Yeah.
know.
It's definitely brave of you, because I know that one, being vulnerable in on social media is already, very brave within itself. But then as an educator, right? Because you say one wrong thing, and or you give one idea that could be very either political or can cause a division, that can, you know what I mean, and
Yes.
saying that to put any fear. I say that because
Well, it's already there. It's I always think about that.
yeah,
There's not a time where I don't think about that when I make a post.
yeah,
And I even sometimes I fact check. I'm like, I asked my wife, "Can you just watch this?
yeah,
Can you watch this?
yeah,
I don't know. Like, should I put it? I don't know." And sometimes I don't think, and I'm just like, "Oh, let me just," and I'm it, you know. And so it's just and what blows my mind is sometimes I'll say some things and then it just goes viral. Like one thing will just go viral. Like I'll have videos that are like low count, and then all of a sudden one video will be like, bam, like damn, what did I say? Let
yeah,
me go back, let me double check. I don't
yeah,
want everybody to see this, you know. And so it's I don't know. It's just it's a tricky thing to navigate. It's a
yeah.
tricky thing to navigate. I feel like it's God's work. I feel like it's God's work. Like I should be doing it. Like I
Mhm.
should be a voice out. I should have a, you know, create this space where I could talk about how to deal with students with difficult behavior, and I could give tips about how to manage difficult behavior.
Mhm.
You know, how do I, you know, just give little tips, little advice. I feel like I should be doing that, but at the same time, it's like, oh, be careful, be
Yeah,
careful,
yeah.
watch yourself. You know.
I will say this, and I'm speaking to your channel. I appreciate the work that you've done up until this point, because I feel that everyone who's come after us, right? I am seeing more, men in education with social media accounts. I
Yeah, me
am
too.
seeing more people of color with social media accounts, but I also feel like it's too pretty, right? It's too Pinterest
Yes.
friendly, and I don't feel like it's a true representation of what's actually happening,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Can you speak on that? Actually, I'm curious to hear your.
Yeah. So I'll see these social media accounts, and
Not,
it
not,
is.
not to put him down. I actually appreciate it, because I'm like, this is creative, right? Why? I would never be able to do something like that, and I do appreciate it in that lens. But I also think that I don't know that it's a good representation of the things that we deal with, right? Like like a good,
Yeah.
like that's great,
So
but you know,
yeah,
how's it?
I feel like for me, it's like let's just keep it raw. Let's just keep it raw, and let's just give my opinion about certain things. And I don't really try to make my posts too pretty at all, and I try to keep it raw. And it's usually just me talking, and I do see these other posts, and it's really it almost looks like. And I don't want to put anybody. I'm not putting anybody. I'm not gonna mention anybody or anything like that. I'm not putting anybody down. But it does look too, yeah, too pretty, too Target, too like a chain of a chain store thing. You
Yeah.
know, like I don't know how to explain. Like it's just a Target. It's a Walmart. It's just a copy of what everybody else is
Mm.
doing. Like ting ting ting. Let's talk about whatever. I don't want to mention because if I say something, it'll be like, oh, it's
Yeah,
that
yeah,
person. Uh, but like, okay, so this idea right here, I had this idea. Is like, um, do you like to do social media? I asked myself this morning, do you like to do social media? Even if nobody watches it, even if you get like 100 views, like, do you like social media? And I was like, um, I like to give my opinion about something. I like to write and then have an idea and then formulate the idea and then say the idea. I
Mm.
was like, "Do you like podcast? You really like doing I was like, even if nobody watches your podcast, like if nobody watches your podcast, would you still podcast? I was like, I like to have a conversation with somebody about education. I like it. I like to, Mr. Gomez. I enjoyed the conversation we're having right now, you know, and all the people that I've interviewed, I've enjoyed the talks I have. Because when do you ever sit for about an hour and be able to talk to somebody about education, about, about the craft? It's very rare,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, for me, it's like I like to do it. So if nobody watches it, if nobody watches the podcast, nobody watches my TikToks or Instagram, whatever, I like it. It's just like, okay, let me put out this idea. Let me talk to somebody for about an hour about education, about the craft. And if so, that's why I think I would continue. I continue still because I just like the process. I like talking to somebody about education, about how did you get into education? What's your story? Let's share that story. Maybe you could inspire somebody, some other person that looks just like you who wants to get in the field of education, who's struggling, doesn't know, and you give your story about, and they're like, that's just like me.
Yeah.
Mr. Gomez was just like me. And if he could do it, then I could do it.
Right.
And so that's why I do this. That's why I do that, because I just need to inspire those people.
And
And
and,
yeah,
and I want to also say it's not venting, right? Because we're not venting. It
mm-mm.
would be very easy for this podcast to be a venting session about all the things that are going wrong with
Oh,
education,
you're so terrible. It's so
right?
terrible. Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's no, it's the absolute opposite. It's talking to, engaging in dialogue with other people that are living through it with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are going through the same struggles with you, that are going through the same successes with you.
Yeah,
And I think I resonate with that a lot because it's true.
yeah,
It's like at no point did I think that this was a venting session, but really a
yeah,
place of a space of dialogue between two educators that it really are passionate about the field.
yeah, yeah. Well, Mr. Gomez, I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to say thank you for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you sharing your wisdom, sharing your story. And I know it's going to resonate with so many people because your story is the story of so many other people, and
Well,
yeah,
I just appreciate, this was this has been needing to happen for quite some time now.
right.
It's finding the time.
Yeah,
But I just know that I enjoy the work that you're doing, not just as an educator, but as a creative, as a content creator,
yeah,
right? Because you allowed me to feel brave enough to get into your channel and engage in this dialogue, right?
yeah,
Um, so thank you for doing
yeah.
God's work,
No
and
problem.
again, not just as an educator, but as a content creator. Um, and
Right on.
for everyone who's watching this, hang in there.
Exactly. It's almost summer.
Yeah.
Don't leave yet. Don't leave.